So in the last batch of videos I posted, I mentioned that I was working on the full Vernian version of the Gundam GP01 from 0083. Heretofore to be referred to as the space type, because I don't have all day, you don't have all day, let's just cut to the chase, and whatever. I finished building it last night, and I really dig it. I really dig this thing a lot. This is a this is my favorite real grade kit so far. Compared to the ground type, it's definitely an upgrade. But let's take a closer look, and we'll compare one to the other. So you can see the space type here retains all the same weapons and accessories as its ground type counterpart. The beam rifle still has the jute attached. The shield collapses the same way. I'm going to pop that off just to get a better look at the rest of the model. Hands, you can see, still have the same articulation. But this one adds a few different gimmicks. You've got the big omnidirectional boost pods on the backpack, which have ball-jointed thrusters on the pods themselves, as well as additional thrusters all over. It's got a trio of pop-out thrusters in each of the shoulder armors, as well as a pair of thrusters in the chest. The color breakdown is a little bit different. On the ground type version, the midsection was red, where this one it's white, and the cockpit hatch on the standard version is blue. But the biggest difference between the two, aside from the boost pods, is it has some different armor. Longer skirt armor, bigger shoulder armors with the aforementioned thrusters, and the legs have these big flared out lower leg sections, which actually don't, not only do they not hinder the articulation of the legs, they actually improve it, because the ground type actually had such big calves, it kind of hindered the knee bend, and this one actually allows it a little bit more flexibility, which is pretty cool. There's some additional armor here on the ankles that allows the foot still full freedom of movement, but the ankle guard on the inside here doesn't really do a whole lot, whereas on the ground type it was on its own articulated little floating module. This one is just pegged in, and it's really just there for show. It doesn't really do much. Ankle itself still has the same freedom of movement as the ground type version had, and the foot has the majority of the articulation that the ground type had still retained, but loses the articulated toe, because the space type has these big, I always call them clown feet. The standard ground type feet are encased in these larger boots, essentially, which both the Master Grade and the Perfect Grade kit modeled as separate slip-on parts, but in this case they're just, the whole foot is molded together, but you can still take the toe off and you can see inside a little bit, but this little flap that would allow the toe articulation is pegged in place, so it can't move. But there was never really that much mobility in that toe to begin with, so you're not really losing a whole lot. You got bigger front and rear skirt armors, but they're on a good solid peg, so they're not likely to fall off at all, and they don't hinder movement really at all. Arms are identical. You got the same set of hands. You've got the standard articulated hands, as well as a pair of fists, closed fists, one grasping hand for the beam rifle, and one hand holding a second shield mount, so that the shield can be held in specialized poses. The beam rifle hand can also hold the beam sabers. The chest thrusters do actually pop in and out a little bit. but you have to detach the torso from the core fighter in order to access the switch. And there's a little panel that you can add over top of them to close them off, but I like leaving them open because I think it looks a little more interesting, and it breaks up the color a little bit. Cockpit opens the same as the ground type version does. So you got the standard hatch, and then the whole chest opens up for greater access. Upper torso can detach and allow access to the core fighter, which transforms much the same way as the ground type version does. A little bit more simple though, because it doesn't have the wings to fold out. So this one works a little bit more simply, and there's a switch on the bottom to deploy these little retro thrusters that fit into the chest of the Gundam. Lots of big thrusters on this thing, all of them ball jointed on the back end, so you can get lots of thruster movements. Core fighter, again, the same as the ground type version, is what really hinders the stability of this kit. I'm glad that they included it because this is the real grade series. You know, they're striving for the peak of detail and accuracy to the source material, but it hinders this version a little bit more than the ground type version, because the ground type version has this backpack armor panel that kind of clamshells over the core fighter, so the upper torso is very stable. It's not likely to detach from the core fighter, whereas the full Vernian, the space type, you can't really do that. There's only two little pegs that hold the upper body to the core fighter. So you could reinforce them a little bit. You could add a little bit of I like to use floor polish, future floor polish. You can put a little bit on, there's these two little pegs here, and you could put a little bit in the sockets on the core fighter itself, and that'll thicken things up a little bit, just enough to make that joint a little bit more sturdy. Because as it is, it's a real bummer that you have to be very careful when posing. It does have the same issue with this movement in the shoulder. If you're a little bit too vigorous, the strut that the arm is attached to could come loose inside the body, but much like the ground type, all you really have to do is just kind of pinch the chest down a little bit, and everything should lock in place just fine. As I think I mentioned in the review of the ground type version, I opted to paint this one's eyes. You probably can't really tell so well on camera, but I used the same method I use on master grade eyes, which is to create a kind of a clear lens, because the eye parts are molded in clear, so I like to try to paint around the lenses as much as possible to retain that clarity and give the look of an illuminated camera sensor. And I think it worked out really well on this one. I'll try and include some photographs. I'll post those probably to my Flickr account, and you might be able to get a good look at those. But I'm really, really glad. I'm really happy with how this one turned out. I think aside from the stability issue with the upper torso, this is hands down the best real grade kit that I've built so far. Now, is this the best real grade kit that has been released so far? I don't know. I haven't built them all, but I've built a fairly broad cross section of them. I would say if it's not the best, it's in the top 3. And I think they've made about a dozen of them so far. And I've built 5 or 6 of them, I think. So I'd say, yeah, I've built a broad enough cross-section to say that if this one's not the best, it's very close to the top. I think I've got one left in my stash that I've yet to build, and that is the Gundam Mark II from Zeta Gundam. I've got it in the dark blue Titans color scheme, and probably going to sit on that for a little bit. It's a really attractive design. I really like the colors, and I am anxious to build it, but I've got a lot of other stuff I got to build first. In fact, starting in the next 3 to 4 days, I'm going to start a build-up review of Bandai's RX-78 version 3 Master Grade. I'll be doing an unboxing review of that in a couple of days, and then starting with a full build-up. I'd say probably sometime around the weekend. Remains to be seen, depends on how busy I am during this week. I may try and get some of it started sooner rather than later. But we'll have to wait and see. Not much else to say. I really dug this thing, and if you're looking for a good real grade kit to build, I highly recommend it. But don't let that little bit of instability deter you, because the build was great, the detail is great, the articulation is great. And if you're not at all interested in the core fighter, you can always glue the torso together. Just be really careful with the pegs that you glue so you don't lose any articulation. So thanks everyone out there for watching, and happy modeling.